And I finished the book with The Ancient Mariner, with Coleridge, Wordsworth's great friend. And I never liked that poem much at school. We had to sort of, all had to learn it by heart and draw pictures of various bits of it and hand it in. Now I've got it. Like Wordsworth, he's worried about nature. And you know the story, of course. This old sailor, accosts a wedding guest, that unfortunate guy who was hoping to go to the wedding, and gets told this long, sad story about how his life changed. And he was a sailor, and he goes, his ship sails, and they get becalmed in the Antarctic region. And then suddenly, out of the blue, an albatross appears. And it's a large white bird with long, slender wings, and it appears on the ship. And it becomes the ship's mascot. And it flies with the ship, and it leads it out of this icebound sea. And it becomes absolutely loved by all the sailors. And then the wedding guest notices that the mariner has grown very, very pale. "What's the matter with you?" he said. "Why ailst thou so?" And the mariner replies, "With my crossbow, I shot the albatross." And, there's no reason for it. Probably hadn't got a reason. He might have just done it out of sheer carelessness. But this is what we do all day long. We chuck things away without thinking what we're doing. We step on flies. We are not noticing what we're doing. We don't notice what we're damaging. And to make ourselves aware that breaks the bond that we have with nature. And of course, you know the story. Eventually, the mariner comes to his senses. It was a terrible trial, and the crew all die. And he looks into the sea, and he's still filled with such anger and loathing at what's happened, that he looks at the sea and he looks at the fishes, and he sees the ugly, slimy things. They lived on, and his fellow mariners are all dead. They lived on, and so do I. Alone, all alone on a wide, wide sea. But one night, and Coleridge does this, it's very well worth it, most beautiful lines in the whole thing, but he does it in prose, has a little prose gloss beside it. Notes how he looked up at the moon, which he'd hitherto seen as just a rather boring, sterile planet. But he suddenly saw the moon as rather like himself, as an endless traveller, travelling through the world, perhaps longing for home, as he did. And he felt an instant sympathy with it. And then he looked back at the fish, and, "Oh, happy living things," said I. No tongue their beauty can declare. And a spring of love gushed from my heart, and I blessed them unaware. A sort of a sudden moment of union with other beasts, and immediately the spell is broken. But how often we do things like shooting an albatross. We may not kill a bird, but swat flies, chuck things away carelessly without giving these things a single thought. And it is breaking the bonds of nature, which will rebound upon us. So, as I say, I really felt when I was writing my book, for the first time, I think I thought I really understood what this book had been about, which I'd had to learn by heart at school. But it is something that we should remember, because stories get to us much more in many ways than just poems or even long discourses. The story stays in our mind and heart. just notice how carelessly we're still leaving plastic on the beach, even though we're told again and again and again that this is absolutely dangerous. We're still doing it. We're still turning on our heating when we don't need to. Flying, I mean, we're flying all over the place. And should we be flying all over the place? Because we know it's damaging the atmosphere. So we should become aware of that. Think of the albatross and the mariner, how carelessly, thoughtlessly we do things, and make ourselves aware of what we're doing, aware that each of these objects around us, each of these things we call them around us, has, as the Chinese understood, a life of its own that is sacred. Thank you.